Technology used to monitor inmates in mega prisons. Silent alertif. Dark, real crime stories like this pull you in. Make sure you subscribe, like, and drop a comment. Because tonight's case will take you inside a place most people will never see, a mega prison where every movement is watched. And yet somehow, someone still managed to disappear. The alarm didn't start loud. It began with a small blinking notification inside the central surveillance room of Red Brook Federal Complex, one of the largest mega prisons in the United States. The facility stretched across hundreds of acres of reinforced concrete and steel, housing nearly 6,000 inmates behind electrified fences and watchtowers. Inside Control Room 7, the quiet hum of servers filled the air. Walls of monitors displayed every corridor, every yard, every cell block. Cameras tracked movement using advanced facial recognition and motion detection software. Wristband trackers monitored inmate locations down to the meter. Nothing inside Red Brook moved without being recorded. At least, that was the belief. Officer Daniel Reyes leaned forward in his chair, staring at the blinking alert on his screen. "That's strange," he muttered. The system was designed to trigger warnings if an inmate stepped outside a designated zone. But this alert wasn't a simple boundary violation. The message read, "Tracker signal lost. Inmate ID 84721. Name, Marcus Hale." Reyes frowned. Trackers didn't just lose signal inside Red Brook. Each inmate wore a reinforced electronic band embedded with GPS and short-range transmitters. The network was backed by hundreds of signal nodes throughout the prison. Even inside concrete cells, the signal never vanished. Until now. Reyes tapped a few keys, pulling up Hale's profile. Marcus Hale had been inside Red Brook for 7 years. A former cybersecurity expert convicted in a massive financial fraud case that had collapsed several tech companies across Europe and North America. He wasn't violent, but he was known for something that made prison administrators uneasy. He understood systems, control. "This is Reyes," he said into the headset. "I'm getting a signal loss from Hale in Sector D." A pause came through the radio. "Probably a sensor glitch," another officer replied. Reyes wasn't convinced. He pulled up the camera feed for Sector D, cell block 4. The narrow hallway appeared empty, lit by cold fluorescent lights. Rows of reinforced doors lined the corridor. Every door had a camera. Every corner had one too. He clicked on Marcus Hale's cell. The camera showed the small, gray room clearly. Bed, sink, steel toilet, but the bed was empty. Reyes sat up straight. He rewound the footage. At 8:12 p.m., Hale had been sitting on his bunk reading. At 8:14 p.m., the video flickered. Just a brief distortion, 2 seconds. Then the image returned. The bed was empty. Reyes stared at the screen. The cell door was still locked. No guards had entered. And according to the logs, the door had not opened once. "Control," Reyes said slowly. "I think we've got a problem." Within minutes, the quiet control room transformed into a command center. Senior Security Director Laura Bennett arrived with 2 supervisors. She studied the footage with narrowed eyes. "Play it again," the clip repeated. "The glitch, the empty bed." Bennett folded her arms. "Check the hallway cameras." Reyes switched feeds. The corridor outside Hale's cell remained empty during the same time window. No guards. No inmates. Nothing. "Impossible," one supervisor whispered. Red Brook was designed with layered monitoring systems. If a camera failed, others would compensate. If a tracker malfunctioned, movement sensors would trigger alerts. But none had. Bennett turned toward Reyes. "Pull up the biometric scanner logs." Every cell door was equipped with biometric locks requiring staff authorization. Reyes searched the system. "No access registered," he said. "So you're telling me," Bennett said quietly, "that an inmate vanished from a locked cell in the most monitored prison in the country?" No one answered. Because that's exactly what it looked like. Within 30 minutes, the prison went into full lockdown. Metal doors slammed shut across every wing. Inmates were ordered to remain inside their cells while armed response teams swept the facility. Meanwhile, technicians began reviewing thousands of hours of digital surveillance data. And that's when they found the second anomaly. Marcus Hale's tracker had not simply gone offline. It had been transmitting a false location for almost 3 hours, a ghost signal. Somewhere inside the prison network, someone or something had manipulated the tracking system. Bennett felt a cold realization forming. This wasn't an escape attempt fueled by desperation. This had been planned, carefully, technically, and whoever did it understood Redbrook's surveillance systems almost as well as the engineers who built them. She turned to Reyes. Pull every camera from Sector D for the past 24 hours. I want to see everything. Hours passed as analysts combed through footage. Most of it was routine: meals delivered, cells checked, lights out. Then, at 2:47 a.m. the night before the disappearance, something strange appeared on one of the corridor cameras. An officer stopped walking, just for a moment. He turned his head toward Holly's cell door and slipped something small beneath the frame. The footage zoomed in. It looked like a thin black device, about the size of a credit card. Bennett's stomach tightened. Enhance it. The image sharpened slightly, enough to see a small blinking light, a signal device. Someone inside the prison had helped Hale, but the real shock came when they identified the officer. Because the man who placed the device outside Marcus Hale's cell wasn't just any guard. He was Senior Systems Technician Oliver Grant, the person responsible for maintaining the prison's surveillance network, the very man who designed the tracking systems that had just been defeated. And when officers rushed to locate him, Oliver Grant was gone too. But when investigators opened Holly's cell and examined the floor beneath the bunk, they discovered something no one expected. A narrow metal plate had been cut cleanly into the concrete, and beneath it, a dark shaft leading into the prison's underground data tunnels, the same tunnels that carried the cables controlling every camera, every sensor, and every tracker inside Redbrook. Which meant only one thing: Marcus Hale hadn't escaped the prison. He had disappeared into its surveillance system. And somewhere inside those tunnels, someone was helping him. His job had been designing network defenses against cyber attacks. He hadn't just studied security systems. He had built them. Bennett leaned closer to the screens. Show me Oliver Grant's workstation. Reyes pulled up the digital activity logs. Grant's terminal had accessed the prison's network late the previous night, and several key commands had been executed. Camera override, signal routing, tracker duplication. One simple line of text: "You were never watching me," then another: "I was watching you, And suddenly, someone else appeared behind Marcus Hale in the dark server room. A shadowy figure stepping into the light. Laura Bennett stared at the screen in disbelief. Because the person standing beside Marcus Hale wasn't Oliver Grant. It was someone far more dangerous, the prison's own deputy warden. For a few seconds, no one in the control room spoke. The image frozen on the monitor showed Marcus Hale standing beside the prison's deputy warden, Charles Whitaker, deep inside Redbrook's underground server vault. The dim light from the server racks illuminated their faces, revealing a calmness that made the situation even more disturbing. Laura Bennett felt the weight of the moment settle in her chest. "Replay that," she said quietly. Daniel Reyes rewound the footage. Again, the figure stepped into the light. Again, the face became unmistakable. Deputy Warden Charles Whitaker, the second highest authority inside Redbrook Federal Complex. The man responsible for security oversight of the entire prison, and the last person anyone expected to be standing beside an escaped inmate in the prison's most restricted facility. This can't be real," one supervisor whispered. But Bennett already knew it was. Whitaker had full administrative access to the prison network. If anyone could quietly bypass security protocols, disable alarms, and manipulate surveillance logs, it would be him. Suddenly, the events of the past 12 hours began forming a new, terrifying picture. The glitch in the camera feed, the clone tracker signal, the blind spots in the tunnels, the delayed response times from certain security teams. Someone with authority had been quietly shaping the investigation from the inside. And now that someone was standing next to Marcus Hale, Reyes leaned forward, typing rapidly. "I'm trying to reconnect to the server vault camera." The screen flickered again. Then the feed returned. Marcus Hale was speaking to Whitaker, though the audio channel was still disabled. Whitaker nodded slowly, then reached into his pocket and handed Hale a small black drive, a data key. Rey's eyes widened. "That's not good." "What is it?" Bennett asked. "That vault contains 20 years of surveillance archives," he said. "Every camera recording, every inmate tracking log, every internal communication." Bennett understood immediately. "If he downloads that, he won't just escape," Reyes finished. "He'll have the blueprint to every mega prison security system in the country." Redbrook had been used as a model facility. Many other prisons had copied its surveillance architecture, which meant Marcus Hale could walk away with data capable of exposing weaknesses across multiple high-security institutions. But the most frightening part wasn't the data. It was the partnership. Bennett grabbed a radio. All tactical teams moved to the server vault. Immediate response. Boots thundered down concrete corridors as officers rushed toward the underground level. Inside the control room, Reyes finally managed to activate the vault's audio channel. Whitaker's voice came through first. "You said this wouldn't trigger a lockdown." Hawley's voice was calm, almost amused. "It didn't," he replied. "Not until they realized I was gone. You promised a quiet extraction. And you promised access," Hale said. "We both got what we wanted." Whitaker looked nervous now. "Once you take the data, we're done." Hale tilted his head slightly. "You still don't understand, do you?" Whitaker frowned. "Understand what?" Hale gestured toward the servers. "This prison isn't just concrete and steel. It's data, movement patterns, behavior predictions, security responses." He tapped the drive against his palm. "With this information, I don't just know how Redbrook works." He smiled. "I know how all of them work." Whitaker stepped back slightly. "That wasn't the deal." "No," Hale said softly, "it wasn't." At that moment, the sound of approaching boots echoed through the tunnel outside the vault. Security teams were close. Whitaker looked toward the door. "We need to leave, now." But Marcus Hale didn't move. Instead, he reached toward a keyboard beside the server rack. Reyes watched in horror from the control room. "What is he doing?" Lines of code appeared on the screen. Hale entered one final command, and suddenly every system inside Redbrook began shutting down. Camera feeds went dark, door controls froze, motion sensors died. For the first time since the prison opened, Redbrook was blind. Inside the vault, Hale removed the data drive. Then he looked directly at the camera again. "People think prisons control inmates," he said quietly. "But the truth is simpler." Whitaker swallowed. "What truth?" Hale slipped the drive into his pocket. "The system only works because people trust it." He gestured toward the dark servers. And now they won't. The vault door burst open as armed officers flooded the room. Hands up, Whitaker immediately raised his hands. But Marcus Hale didn't run. He didn't fight. He simply stood there calmly. Minutes later, both men were placed in restraints and escorted out of the vault. The prison system slowly came back online. Lockdown remained in place for 3 days while federal investigators descended on Red Brook. Whitaker was arrested and charged with corruption, conspiracy, and abuse of authority. Investigators later discovered massive financial transfers linking him to offshore accounts. Marcus Hale returned to a reinforced isolation unit under constant physical supervision. No electronics, no network access, no digital systems. For a while, it seemed the crisis had ended. But 3 months later, during a federal review of Red Brook's surveillance archives, analysts made a disturbing discovery: a hidden line of code buried deep inside the monitoring network. It had been inserted the night Marcus Hale entered the server vault. A dormant program, waiting. When investigators finally activated the file, a message appeared on the screen. Just one sentence: "If you're seeing this, it means the system still trusts itself." Below it was a second message: "And that means I'm still inside it." No one ever found out exactly what Marcus Hale had copied, or what he had left behind. But security experts across the country quietly began redesigning their prison monitoring systems. Because one question refused to disappear: if the most secure mega prison in the country could be manipulated from the inside, how many others already had been? And if you think this case was intense, you're not ready for the next one, so make sure you subscribe, because the next story might be even darker.